Good morning and welcome to the online devotion from Mount Gilead Church. My name is Mike Bridgewater and I'm the operations director here at the church building. If you've been following along from home, you know that here on Friday mornings we've been working our way through the parables of Jesus. Last week we looked at the second part of Luke chapter 12, where we learned about being at a high state of readiness for the Lord's return. Jesus spoke about the tables will be turned on the faithful servants who were ready and watching for their master's return. And they're going to get elevated. They're going to be blessed and rewarded from the lowest of slaves to guests who are actually served by the master at his table. This parable caused Peter to ask a question. He asked, "Lord, is that parable just for us or is that for everyone?" Instead of just giving a simple yes or no answer to the question, Jesus tells another parable. And this speaks to me as maintaining a high level of focus and staying on mission, which boils down to being faithful, as in being loyal. There is some tough teaching on the way. We're going to pick the story back up in verse 42 of chapter 12. And it says, "And the Lord replied, 'A faithful, sensible servant is one whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put that servant in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant thinks, 'My master won't be back for a while,' and he begins beating the other servants, partying, and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant in pieces and banish him with the unfaithful. And a servant who knows what the master wants but isn't prepared and doesn't carry out those instructions will be severely punished. But someone who does not know and then does something wrong will be punished only lightly. When someone has been given much, much will be required in return. And when someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required." The benefit of maintaining our focus and staying on mission and being loyal and faithful is the opportunity for promotion, being entrusted with more and more responsibilities, with the reward being beyond our comprehension. As described in verse 44, we'll put the servant in charge of all he owns. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2, "Now a person who is put in charge as a manager must be faithful." Next, he contrasts the servant who loses focus and gets off mission. He even gives us some behaviors to look for if we are off mission. Abusing fellow servants, abusing our bodies. That unfaithful servant is destroyed, is cut into pieces, and banished with the unfaithful. The implication being the way we treat ourselves and others is an indicator of our faithfulness and loyalty to Christ. Jesus states it plainly for us in John 13. "So now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other, just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." Then Jesus wraps up this parable by closing all the loopholes. The first loophole is in verse 47 and is for the servants who are aware, but for whatever reason, fail or refuse to act. James writes in chapter 2, verse 26, "Just as the body is dead without breath, so also is faith dead without good works." The second loophole he closes is the classic excuse of ignorance. In chapter 1 of the letter to the Romans, Paul writes, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." Paul's just saying it's obvious from the things that are made that there is a God. When I read and study these parables, it's like looking into a mirror. Sometimes I like what is reflected, and other times not so much. In Romans 12, Paul tells us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. I've learned the problem with a living sacrifice is that the cares of the world can quickly pull you down off the altar and get you completely off mission. The world and the flesh have a way of distracting us. I think that's why Jesus reminds us to take up our cross daily. He knows life is a struggle and we have to daily claw our way back up on the altar. There is one big difference, though, that we can lean on. Unlike the absent master we read about in these parables, our Master Jesus is never far away. At the end of Matthew, he makes his final I am statement before leaving earth. He says, "And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Take comfort. He's always with us. Hey, thanks so much for watching. That's all I have for you today. Justin will continue the King Jesus series this Sunday. I hope to see you here at either 9 o'clock or 10:30. Have a great rest of your Friday. Bye-bye.